One of the most evident contrasts between the 1960s and the 1980s was Aaron Bapero's growing familiarity with the external services and institutions. This reflected nationwide improvements in transportation and communication and increased government efforts to enhance health, education, and welfare. Through their improved access to Salvador, Aaron Baperos could take advantage of new and expanded national programs. The role of government in villagers' lives had become much more prominent. Benefits were funneled through municipal seats. Bus service now linked Arambepe, Kamacara, and a local man sold rides there in his pickup truck. More than a dozen villagers went to the municipal seat to collect monthly pensions, which averaged about $40 for a retired fisherman. The age at which eligibility for pensions began had just been reduced from 65 to 60. The availability of government pensions was one of the main reasons many men, 14 out of 105, had retired from fishing. During the 1960s, about 10% of Arambepe's fishermen had been over 70 years old, and 31% over 60 years old. The new fishing pattern would have been especially taxing for older men. Pensions allowed them to opt for a more leisurely lifestyle. Women also drew government stipends, some as fishermen's widows, others as retired businesswomen. More would do so in the future. For example, Alberto's wife Carolina and their two grown daughters, who worked in their parents' store, all made monthly payments of about $10 each to ensure Social Security and retirement benefits. Most local business people did the same thing. The even more ample benefits available through the factory jobs have already been mentioned. Villagers went to Kamakari for many other reasons. The town had grown enormously since my last visit there in the 1960s. A booming petrochemical industry had developed on the outskirts of the municipal seat. The factories transformed petroleum into products like polyurethane. A few men from Arambepe commuted an hour's round trip to work in the petrochemical industry. Kamakari now had one-way streets, two supermarkets, a commercial center, several pharmacies, doctors' offices, labs, and other medical services. The head of statistical services for the municipality told me about plans for the national census scheduled to begin in September 1980. Would he send me the results for Arambepe? Certainly, he replied. Or better yet, take down the number and give a call next year. I'll give you information on the phone. Remembering the sleepy county seat of the 1960s, I had trouble imagining myself sitting down in my Ann Arbor office and making a long-distance call to Kamakari, Brazil. Kamakari also had a dozen lawyers' offices, testimony to increasing litigation, which extended to Arambepe. Our former cook, Dora, for example, accompanied me to Kamakari to see the attorney who had agreed to represent her in a suit she had brought against a former neighbor. The case originated in Dora's decision to tear down her old wattle and daub hut in northern Arambepe, but to build a brick house on the lot she rented from the landowning family. Before construction could begin, the man who owned the brick house in front of her built a fence around her lot, claiming it as part of his property. Trying to avoid a feud between her relatives and his, both belonged to large local families, Dora took the case to court. An ambitious move, but probably a lost cause given her inexperience with the law. Many Arambeperos now paid licensing fees to the municipality for their stores, bars, and restaurants. This was another contrast with the 1960s, when only the owners of the two largest stores had paid those fees. Municipal officials inspected weights and measures, and there was regular mail delivery. The streets now had formal names, street signs, and house numbers. The names were those of the landlords who owned particular parts of the village. Even residents of street down there were abandoning this traditional designation for a new landlord-derived name. Arambeperos themselves were now identified in the more detailed and impersonal terms of the nation-state. Full names were used in legal documents, and people were more familiar with last names of fellow villagers. Most adults now had identity papers. Alberto's whole family, including his 12-year-old daughter, carried them when they left Arambepe. People could be jailed if they were stopped by police and lacked an ID. Another new pattern was for Arambeperos to join the armed forces. After junior high school, many local boys now presented themselves to the Army, Air Force, or Navy. Military service is, in theory, required of all healthy young men in Brazil. Along with education beyond primary school, a stint in the armed forces provided experience and documents that helped young men find jobs with TBRS and other externally managed organizations. Jamie, the Tebris worker introduced in Chapter 8, had joined the Army after completing some high school. Both experience helped him get his semi-skilled job at Tebris. State and municipality had combined to bring better educational opportunities to Arembepe. This reflected implementation of the Basic Education Reform Law of 1971, which mandated 8 years of education in primary and junior high school. The new law also set a national core curriculum of general studies, including practical courses to determine vocational aptitudes in grades 5 through 8. Preparation for employment was a main goal of education reform. Arembepe's new junior high school and its 2 elementary schools had a total of 5 competent teachers, 2 local people, and 3 outsiders. 2 were state employees, 2 municipal. The classroom of the